One of the things people need to consider carefully if they're thinking about going to the Workplace Relations Commission with an employment-related claim or claims, and what they fail to do often do a cost-benefit analysis of bringing the claim. In other words, it may well be the case that somebody can come in to my office, make a complaint or complaints about things the employer did or failed to do in the workplace. And I might say, yeah, you have a claim there, all right. And when we look at it then, and look at the potential payoff of the claim, we discover that it's marginal at best, bringing a claim, unless they are going to do it themselves, in which case they may not win. Now, they may win, absolutely. As a lay litigant, you can win cases, no problem, if the facts are in your favour. But often a person will come into my office and they'll have a complaint and they will win, but it's not worth pursuing. In other words, the potential payoff is so small, it's really not worth it. On the canal here in Enfield, I think it's, God, I don't know what date it is now, 17th or 18th of June, I think. But so you need to weigh up from a cost-benefit analysis, the cost of bringing the claim and the potential payoff. So filling out the online complaint form is easy, but if you're looking for legal representation, you could be looking at significantly more money. And you're looking at probably, just for starters, something like 3 to 5 grand plus VAT for a solicitor, perhaps barrister. And it'll depend then on how many days there is, how many days of hearings and so on and so forth. But the bottom line is you need to factor that in, because nobody's going to give you that money. You have to stump up yourself. There's a boat there, or a barge rather. Another one here as well. Well, 2 more actually, 3 barges there now. But yeah, the WRC or the Labour Court don't have jurisdiction to award costs. So each party must pay their own way. So the bottom line is, if you have a solicitor going along with you to a hearing, you're looking at the very least, probably 3 grand plus VAT for representation. And if you consider your claim is only worth 3 grand, or it's only worth 1,500 quid, or a couple of weeks' wages, then it's not going to be worth your while. You have to weigh it up. So you have to be sensible, do a cost-benefit analysis, as I said, and see if it's worth going ahead. Now, obviously, if you're confident enough, or if the facts are sufficiently clear that you feel you could represent yourself at the hearing and so on, fair enough, you could go ahead, not worry then about legal costs, and represent yourself and hopefully win your case. But you always do have to do that cost-benefit analysis situation. And I'll give you an example of one which is common enough. A person comes into me and they have a claim for unfair dismissal or constructive dismissal. And if you calculate, if you actually make inquiries from them and ask them when they were dismissed and have they obtained new employment and so on, you discover that yes, they have an absolutely slam dunk case for unfair dismissal, but they got a new job 2 or 3 weeks later or a month later. And if that's the case, then the most they can be awarded by the Workplace Relations Commission is 1 month's wages. So if you consider 1 month's wages, depending on how much you're earning and so on, compare that with the cost of getting legal representation, perhaps a solicitor, then again it's marginal whether the case is worth pursuing or not. On the other hand, you might have a case where a person has been the victim of discrimination in the workplace, or perhaps sexual harassment, then the award for those types of cases, if you're successful, is up to 2 years' salary. So then it's a different calculation. You're not going to get 2 years' salary per se just because the statute books state that the maximum is 2 years' salary. But it is quite possible that you'll get 2 years' salary. But even 12 months' salary may well make it worth your while to pursue the case. And the discrimination claim for sexual harassment or any other form of discrimination will lead to compensation, which is tax-free. So you need to factor that in as well, because unfair dismissal, that will lead to compensation, which is taxable. Again, you need to weigh this up and factor it into your decision. Do I stay or do I go? Do I bring the claim or do I just forget about it, walk away, chalk it down to experience, try and avoid it happening again, and so on? So some cases can be potentially very costly for the employer and lead to very significant payouts. And let's say discrimination, even unfair dismissal. But discrimination can lead to an award of up to 2 years salary for the act of discrimination. So even if you got a new job relatively quickly, after perhaps suffering discrimination and leaving that job and getting a new job, then you're still entitled to be compensated for the act of discrimination and the employer's failure to provide you with a place of work which is free from discrimination and free from breaches of your right to dignity in the workplace. So you need to factor those things in when you're considering bringing a claim. Down the canal here in Enfield, the canal is just there. It's a beautiful day again. Forecast is quite good, which is good. Another thing I've noticed, which happens when a person brings a claim to the Workplace Relations Commission, and we set out in a submission our client's position and our client's arguments, and we set out the facts and we set out the law and we set out the reasons why my client should win. It often happens in the run-up to the hearing, we receive the submission from the other side, whether it's the employer or employer's side, it doesn't make any difference. We receive the version of events from the other side in the conflict. And what can often happen is my person, my man, my woman, whether it's an employee or an employer, spit the dummy out, lose the head completely, and go into some sort of a frenzied meltdown. They say, oh, that submission is full of lies, and why are they saying those things about me, and all this sort of stuff. And what they fail to realise is that it's an adversarial sort of a system, insofar as each side has to put forward the best argument they can. It's just business, it's nothing personal. And many people lose sight of that. Now, I know it's easy for a solicitor to say, oh yeah, it's just business and it's not personal, and the person might say my good name and reputation and so on is at risk here. But the fact of the matter is, if you are going to bring a claim against somebody, whether it's an employee or an employer, and you're going to accuse them of breaching the law or some alleged wrongdoing, well then they naturally are going to defend themselves and they're going to put their best foot forward, and inevitably there's going to be a conflict of narrative, a conflict of story, a conflict of evidence, and you have to be ready for that. And by ready for that, I mean just accept it and let the adjudicator on the day then make a decision about whose version of events is more likely and who will basically win. But there's no need to go into a frenzied meltdown just because your version of events is now being challenged, or a different version of events is being put forward as a possibility. It's an amateurish sort of a reaction or response for a person. I'll put that down and double. Yeah, it's an amateurish sort of a reaction. Understandable, I suppose, especially when a person might be just going to the Workplace Relations Commission for the first time, or the Labour Court, whatever. But you do need to bear in mind that every side, or every conflict, every dispute, there's going to be 2 or 3 sides to the story, quite frankly. There's going to be your side, their side, and probably the truth. Now, that's not to say that you're not telling the truth, but everybody has a different perception of events, and that's just completely natural, that's understandable, that's what happens. So you need to be aware of that, and you need to, if you engage the services of a solicitor, or indeed if you don't, and you bring a claim to the Workplace Relations Commission and you receive a submission from the other side, don't go into some self-defeating meltdown that they're out to do you down, or you're going to sue them for defamation, or this is appalling, I worked there for 5 years and I worked my arse off, and so on. Like, it's just business. It's just business. It's just a conflict. It's just a dispute. But it is a dispute where significant amounts of money can be at stake if things go wrong for one party or the other. And as I mentioned earlier on there, like 2 years' wages, 2 years' salary as compensation is a lot of money, which most employers are going to have great difficulty with. So you have to be mindful of that they're going to inevitably and understandably defend the case, defend themselves. So that's it. Hope you liked the video. Hit the thumbs up button down below. There's people down here now exercising to beat the band down the canal here in Enfield. It's a great facility, especially on a beautiful day like today. Fantastic facility. Anyway, hit the thumbs up button down below and subscribe to my channel. It's completely free.